Okay, this is the Bart Ehrman versus me debate on Luke 17:21. I had to apparently have to turn off my camera and switch it around, but so I had to make two videos here because I don't do editing. But again, we're on the a website that's associated with Bart Ehrman. Rhymes with eggnog. Drop the egg, nog. So Ehrman something nog. And without an account, you can go to April 2nd of 2025. And you can see here that he does a smart ass thing where he likes to get back at me and he'll do these little questions, but he'll put the questions that I ask in it. And that's his way of, because he cannot justify what he's saying. So he'll think of some creative way to make it basically discredit what I'm saying. And here he's saying, I have a couple questions from blog readers, especially key for understanding how scholars make the claims they do. One of the questions, and he's referring to me, one of the questions challenges whether I have grounds to make one of the claims that I do! Exclamation mark. Good questions. Some grounds, say, of coffee are better than others. That's probably one of his, get you back. He's got to get you back. He's one of these people that's got to strike back because he has to make up for the fact that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Here in Luke 17:21. So someone said something about no clear winner. I think I was responding to this question right here, but you could see, so this started April 6th of 2025, and I kind of give my answer to this guy. Now, Bart loves to chime in, and, it's his blog. He can do whatever he wants, right? But I was giving some information here about how basically this word isn't found before in Darby. But Bart came in and said, I don't think any Greek translator today pays the least attention to Darby. I knew the translators of the NRSV. I worked for the committee, and of the NRSV UE. The two chairs are good friends, and I can assure you Darby was lasting on their minds for this past group. I have a hard time imagining they even know about Darby's Bible. It's kind of a dumb statement. I mean, everyone knows about Darby's Bible. Whatever. I respond, this is me, C. Kenneth Bauer. I could very much agree with that statement. I very much doubt any revision committee for the past century looks back any further than their last edition, which is how these very issues come about. And just because they are unaware, I think I can make this bigger. There we go. That it came from Darby does not mean it didn't come from him. You were unaware of it when I told you. So this is from another discussion that we had. I don't know if he's playing dumb, which I think he is because everyone knows about Darby's Bible, but whatever. Yet they have this view, and you have this view, so where did it originate from? Any Greek classicists on this committee? Question mark. There is a complete disconnect somewhere between then and now. Oh, Bart, the wrong you could right, the justice you could do for author of Luke, and the future of the people's understanding of this passage with your knowledge and influence. It's not too late to do so, but forever is. What an opportunity wasted? Question mark. What are you holding on to? Your view? Is it more important than these things I mentioned? Would you walk into a debate with your view and the evidence you have of it, or take the opposite view and the evidence of it. No, there are not the same view. No, they are not the same view. Very much different. What I'm trying to do here is appeal to Bart's, good nature. If there's any left, it doesn't seem like there's any left. I'm trying to appeal to him that says, I'm saying you know what I'm talking about. You're full of it. And you can do the right thing here, or you can do the wrong thing, or continue to do the wrong thing. Because this is at a point where I know what's going on. I've already spoken to people way above his level of expertise in a different field that knows about this word entos. His response was, yes, for starters, the chair of the committee, Bruce Weber, my mentor, and PhD in classics from Princeton. Bart does this thing, and a lot of them do this thing where they like to avoid questions. They're very slippery. He's a professional debater, and they're good at manipulation and like two people boxing. You could dodge and duck and weave and put something else out. So really, he doesn't answer the question. He doesn't give any information. This is more me talking about the lineage of it, and I cover this in my video as well about the biggest lie in all of Christianity. I think it's called on this channel. It's got about 6,000 views. It's a pretty big one compared to the other ones. But here I'm talking about it's always been the kingdom of God is within you or inside of you. And people of the NRSV know this. As a matter of fact, the history of the NRSV changed it just out of the blue. And I cover this in my video, and I'm explaining that to him. This is some other reference to it. So it seems like that's the end of the NRSV part of it. Here he says, he always suspected that was among you, like we live in the South where we live, y'all. Basically what he's saying here is when you convert it over to English, we don't have a plural you. We have a y'all. And a lot of biblical people try to pick this up as some sort of excuse. Like, oh, we don't have a you, so we'll just say y'all. They're manipulating you again. That's exactly what this y'all is. When you hear someone say that, they're screwing with you. What they're not telling you is that if we were Greek and we were living in Greece, and we didn't speak any other language, that the kingdom of God would be inside of you. But for some reason, when you move to America and learn a different language, it becomes something else completely different. It's external. But this is based on the English language. And it's a bunch of nonsense. Nothing is different for anyone else on this planet. The same is true for every single human being on this planet. There's no difference. Doesn't matter what race you are, if you're male or female, or what language you speak. It doesn't matter. What matters is what was being said. And even Bart Ehrman would have to agree that that's what it would be in Greek. And the only reason he gets away with it is because of this plural you statement. And it's just an excuse. It's a sleight of hand trick. It's smoke and mirrors. Okay? So, blah, 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 blah. I think I come down here and I respond directly to his little blog post. This question I asked on the ground, so I'm referring to this jab, this stabbing me in the back type approach to explaining the New Testament. And this question I asked and the grounds I stand on are still the same today. In that, factually speaking, Nowhere before the 1850s can you ever find anywhere the word entos ever being used in any other way than to mean inside. Luke 17:21 is a very particular verse that a general approach to translation does not adequately serve its definition of the proper meaning. The English language that didn't even exist at the time of Luke's writing does not redefine or change the meaning of passages, nor does a very popular Bible and commentary by John Darby change the meaning of the New Testament either. This is not a theological or religious view. It is a fact that no one on this planet who has this view has yet so far been able to demonstrate otherwise, but rather instead use vague, contextual stacking theological biases that prove nothing as an answer. So I'm really getting in his ass here, and I'm challenging him. This is just like the generation argument in Matthew 24, where all of a sudden generation means something other than just that. I still challenge Professor Ehrman and anyone else to find any proof that supports this mixed view in Luke 17:21. So in comes Mr. Ehrman again. I've already shown you that this is not true. So I don't know what he's referring to. I think I commented on some more here, but he keeps saying that I've already shown you that this is not true. Entos is used of people who are within the walls of the city as one example, going back to Homer. But that doesn't mean that they are stuck in there with the rocks and mortar. I understand that you don't think so, and you've made your strong case, so I suggest we move on to another topic. So here we are with Bart Ehrman. He makes these little blog posts, okay? But when I bring something up, he has to immediately move in again to defend himself. And you'll see he likes to use this, let's move on to another topic, which I've never really heard him say before. It's a tactic. You know, you'll see he uses lots of very pathetic tactics to employ, like a communist, like a liberal government would do. You know, they like to change the atmosphere. But guess what? I'm an idiot, and I don't care, and I'm going to go do it anyway. I see you have looked into the issue further, and I'm glad to receive your view. So again, this comes from what he said about going back to Homer. He's actually never made this point before, this. He's bringing it up right now, but he's making it sound like he brought it up before. I have screenshots of every single one of our communications, and I keep them for record, just for my record, for notes, to refer to later, not really to bring up at court or anything. He brings up this Homer, and but it doesn't mean they are stuck inside the walls, the rocks and the mortar. So he's using a very vague reference to something that really doesn't even make any sense, because this word entos means inside. So it just means inside. It's the opposite of outside. But he is bringing up the fact that it doesn't mean they are stuck inside the rocks, right? Rocks and mortar. So for some reason, it's exterior. And there's no view. And trust me, people argue about Homer just as much as they do the New Testament. And when I brought this up to some Greek classicists, very, the keeper of keys of Greek history and culture, okay, don't really agree with what he's getting at here. And they've mentioned to me many, many times, and you'll see it later on, that they've stated, look, whoever's making this claim, because I don't tell them who it is pushing some sort of theology. Okay, that's the only reason why they're making these claims. That's what they've told me. And I agree with them, of course. But he's motivated by something else other than what the word's actually saying. Okay? So I have seen you looked into the issue further because he never brought it up before, right? And I'm glad to receive your view, but this is the first time you have ever shared it with me, this or any other example like it pertaining to the word entos. So I'm calling him a liar, and I can prove it too. Again, like I take screenshots of everything. I know you have a lot of members, though. I would have heard of this earlier. If I would have heard this earlier, I would have taken it into account, as I, through exhaustive research, have never found anything definitive to suggest entos has ever meant anything other meaning to anything external like you are suggesting. This is not a religious or theological view of mine. Bart is a fact based on evidence, which is all I care about. And in your reference to Homer's Iliad, yes, that's the reference he's giving, the inside the walls. It's a very famous book. It talks about the siege. They made a movie about it, I think, with that Brad Pitt guy, something like that. I know Brian Cox was in it. I don't find at all your explanation to be convincing towards your view at all, but rather mine. Entos inside, but you are claiming Luke 17 is in the midst, which is in mesos as demonstrated by the author before and after chapter 17. Are you saying Homer is referring specifically to the inside of the actual wall and not inside of the walls of the city as Homer is describing? Is this a new revelation? So I'm giving it to him a little bit. When I capitalize this entos, okay, it's the same thing as the Greek word. I used it earlier. If you'll look, I do it here, entos. I thought I just saw it. I just wanted to show you what the Greek word looked like. So when I capitalize entos, because we kind of go back and forth. I don't know where it went. I saw it. Anyways. Then we'll go back to it. Oh, here it is right here. So, entos. Okay. So when I use this capital entos, I'm referring to this. Okay, that's the Greek word of it. Sometimes I get lazy and I don't copy and paste it and I just capitalize it like that. Okay? Okay, so back to it. Nope. I mentioned it before, but it didn't signify. I don't know what that means or what he means by it. If you know Greek, just look it up in the Liddell Scott and you'll see a number of instances more or less like this. Now, I've already gone over this. It's funny, I've already gone over this with him. Before 1901, or at the publishing of the Liddell Scott in 1901, there is no reference to entos being among or in the midst or anything else. There is now. So what he's saying is not invalid. If you go to Liddell Scott and you look up entos, you'll have all these references. But guess where these references come from? John Nelson Darby. You'll also notice that when you go to Liddell Scott, they don't give any references. That's funny. Because if you go to Liddell Scott and you look up entos, it will give you Homer. It will give you all kinds of descriptions of where the word was used. I don't own the updated Liddell Scott. I think it's from I think the last version was 1940. I know there's another one now, but it's kind of just like a revised one. So they haven't really changed anything, but it's complicated. I can't remember it all right now, but the Liddell Scott now does reflect this among entos as it relates to entos. In the midst, in mesos, and among, which is an American word. It's an English word. It's not a word in Greek. But nowhere in this book does it say where the reference come from. Even the reference he's making right here about the Homer, that's not in there. I haven't seen it. Not in the version I saw. Unless they made another version. The only references they make are references that they don't attribute to anything. So they make the reference, but if you try to find out what work they're referring to, it doesn't tell you. That's funny. And he should know that. So either he's stupid, really stupid, or he's hiding something. Which one do you think it is? Now, in response to that, please provide a date of the article. I would like to read this reply because he claimed that he already told me. In the original edition, 8th edition, I told Liddell Scott, nowhere mentions entos with any other such reference as to among or in the midst, nothing exterior. Now, again, I'm giving him, he's not giving me anything. I'm giving him everything. I'm challenging him. I'm like, look, 1901, Liddell Scott. How come it doesn't mention that? How come it mentions it now and all of a sudden it didn't? How come that NRSV mentions among you now, but in 1901, again, it was the RSV at that time. I think it was the first edition of the RSV. It just says within you. And then all of a sudden, 40 years later, it just changes. They still kind of keep a note like, oh, it can also mean that. And Bart Ehrman claims that too. Oh, it can also mean that, but that's a lie. That's a lie because it doesn't say that. They're trying to pawn it off and make it sound like, oh, yeah, it can mean that too, but then it doesn't. That's what they're just manipulating you when they do that. But I make this claim that the Liddell Scott of 1901 doesn't have that. Again, in this video that I have, you'll see all these references. With any such reference to as among or in the midst, nothing exterior. So if a later edition of the same publisher as an additional or different description of the word entos where it did not originate from, and why is this translation completely missing from all the previous editions? One would have to ask that question. If it's in there and it's not in any previous editions, where did it come from? And why all of a sudden did it appear in the 40s and not at the turn of the 20th century, 1901? I think I'm saying that right. Which just brings us back to my previous question of people that hold this view of entos as being among or in the midst of. Anything exterior that is completely void of any explanation or reference as to what work they are citing. So far, the only answer to this question is Darby's Bible and Commentary. It is the only work that can be pointed to for over 1,800 years that would explain where this among reference in Luke 17:21 came from. There are no manuscripts, commentaries, Bibles, or works anywhere in any language that I have found pre-1850s that would reflect this type of translation of among or in the midst of, or this plural you, or all this other nonsense. I have asked you and numerous others to cite just one reference to a pre-Darby work, and no one can. But again, he is pointing to this Homer's Iliad, which I think it's the Iliad. I think pretty sure that's what he's referring to. But it's a very vague, subjective answer. It's not like, here it is right here. It's not anything, especially, it's not anything irreconcilable. I can't say that word. But his answer to all that is, you'd be amazed at how many linguistic views have been established by scholars that were not found before the 1830s. I don't have a data list of my reply to comments, but I suppose you could find it by looking it up. Like I said, I screenshot all of our comments for my record, so they're not there. And he obviously can't bring it up because he says he can't. Whatever. And then I give a real smart ass comment, reply, more amazed than a Bible scholar, him, and a professor of the New Testament that holds a view in the Bible that perpetuates a narrative with no real actual evidence that they dare to point to. So basically, you'd be amazed at linguistic views that have been established. More amazed than a Bible scholar and professor of the New Testament that holds a view in the Bible that perpetuates a narrative with no real actual evidence that they dare to point to, and then touting it as a fact to everyone who asks by giving loose types of subjective general facts, not specific to the actual topic, as an answer and excuse to reinterpret a passage in the Bible, all the while masking the fact that it is actually indeed a part of a made-up Bible story by some manipulative nutcase who is none other than John Darby. So basically, I'm calling him a manipulative nutcase too. Not very Christian thing to do, but I'm really giving it to him, and I'm giving him permission. He didn't have to stoop down to my level, but I'm really laying it down for him. And I keep a record of all of our answers since I joined in order to refer to them later if I needed to. You have never responded with anything that has, nor have you yourself ever cited any such work to support your view of this word entos, meaning and or been used in any way to describe anything other than inside, which basically encapsulates our whole exchange on this topic of Luke 17:21. So basically what I'm alluding to is that I have records, you're a liar, you're a nutcase, I'm giving it to him here because it's reached a point where it's getting quite ridiculous, and I'm calling him out. His reply, I've mentioned Homer's entos, the walls twice. Let's move on to another topic now. Again, he has nothing to say. All he has to do is say, and I would accept it. All he has to do is say, hey, in such and such works, it's referenced here. Now, he doesn't have to do that, but that's kind of the whole point of this blog that he controls. It's to talk about this stuff. But he can't do it. You see this right here? He can't do it. I've mentioned Homer's entos, the walls, twice. Yeah, he has. You've given me a subjective answer that isn't valid. That doesn't say anything. You have to understand how these people act. They set up like a stage. Okay? They're the ones that set up the stage. This reference he's giving here, that's not what it says. That's not what it means. That's not what the author, Homer, is getting at. But he's coming up with some vague, manipulative way to try to support his theory. And we'll get into that too either, because he may understand it this way, but did Luke understand it that way? Did he even know who Homer was, let alone have copies of his work? And the other question is, if he did, why did he choose to use that reference rather than what's in the Septuagint, which he did have access to? I'm pretty damn sure he did. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he didn't have any reference. Maybe he didn't have the Septuagint or anything in the Old Testament. But it would certainly line up quite well with the Old Testament. I get in that later with him too. I did move on to another topic, Bart, until you decided to publish the post in the manner that you did. I know what you're doing and your reason for posting it, and you knew what you are doing by doing so. You have now officially brought up Homer's inside the walls argument, an argument that so far two Greek classicists. So this is in the meantime, so I have meetings. I hire these people to consult with just to give me answers. And I asked them about this again. And it's funny, I get these eye rolling from them, on Zoom. Even on Zoom, you can see their eyes rolling, but it's like I got to exhaust everything because it's an important topic. I tell them that, Mike, look, this is important. People make these claims, and I explore them with me, and they do. So two of them, I have four in total, but a couple I don't work with anymore. They're not really available, and they're a real pain in the ass to work with too. A lot of these college people are really touchy. They're really crabby. I don't know what their problem is, but they're real delicate little doilies. These professors, they think they're something real special. A lot of them, but the ones that I did check with did not agree with him at all about this Homer reference. Okay. In relation to your exterior view of the word entos in Luke 17:21, they did, however, again mention that Homer does here demonstrate how in your heart statement to a crowd, plural, does not change the meaning of the word entos from an interior to an exterior one, as you claim is happening in Luke 17:21, and indeed is something that happens frequently around this period of Greek. So if you ever have something else to add, I'm always searching to verify, but still have not found sufficient support of what you and many others who are making this among claim in Luke 17:21. So until then, let's move on. Okay. But you'll see he comes back and starts it up all over again, because this person asked me, I'm an ESL person. I think that's what's it called? Interlinear thing. But he brings up the y'all and et cetera, et cetera. If you're reading it, you can go through it. It's here, and you don't need an account to look at it. It's funny, the AI has been picking this up too, and they even quote me, so I don't know what I'm in for when that happens. But this is Bart Ehrman's response to this, because he's asking me, he's getting it, he's coming in again, which is fine. I mean, come on in, let's talk about it some more. But Bart Ehrman responds, it matters because it is a difference between the kingdom of God being a mystical entity and residing inside us, or the manifestation of God's kingdom specifically in the life and ministry of Jesus. Those are two very different things. Now, I agree with Bart Ehrman on this topic. What he's saying is he takes the position that God's kingdom specifically in the life and ministry of Jesus. That's what Bart's claim is, that it's an exterior manifestation. But when you look at the the verse of 20 and 21, Jesus says it's invisible. He doesn't say it's not already present, because we know it's already present. Jesus was manually bringing in that kingdom. Okay? Jesus was demonstrating for us earthlings how it was going to be when the kingdom of God came. And it's been this way for 2,000 years. But we have a physical showing of what it is. But it's not something that exists visibly. That's why a lot of people, 99.999+% of people, think it's still a physical kingdom coming, just like the Jews thought. It's a spell. It's a demonic spell. It really is. Or God's just blinding people to it, because everyone's expecting this physical kingdom. Even Bart Ehrman, who's a futurist, he thinks that it's going to be physical, even though it says that it's not physical. That's why people don't get it. It is something we'll classify it as supernatural, spiritual, whatever you want to call it. You can't see it. It exists, but it's not here. That's what Jesus was demonstrating when he healed people. Jesus didn't actually, when he made mud out of the eyes, I mean, that's just some physical thing. He didn't even have to do that. He didn't have to do anything. It just happened. They were cured of leprosy. People were touching his cloak, and they were healed. But it's not because they touched his cloak. It's because they had faith. And they were healed because of that faith. Actually had nothing to do with Jesus. But the fact that he was here and he had the authority to do it is how it happened. And that might be confusing because Jesus was here, but it wasn't because he was here. But it was only because he was here. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense to me either, but it does make sense. And then he sent the apostles out to do the exact same thing. They had power to do it, like I said, in Luke 10, with 20, when he made that statement. You know what? And that takes me back. I want something else about that Luke 17. When you get to 20, and then he gets to 21, rejoice greatly in the Holy Spirit, and said, I praise you, O Father and Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and intelligent and have revealed them to infants. I think that's very important. Again, it encapsulates. I'm using that to encapsulate what I'm saying. This information is given to us because we believe and we ask. I know that the kingdom of God is here. The Bible bears witness to it. I've asked and God showed me. But people don't see it. That doesn't mean that they're not saved. It's just they're not paying attention. They don't have the relief that I have because I've seen it. I'm at rest. I'm at ease because of it. That's what Jesus is doing. But Bart is saying that Jesus' ministry was physical. And it's not. It doesn't work that way. Even the verse says it is, but he has to manipulate the verse too. These people that do this have to go through a lot of work. They have to go through the whole Bible. They have to change certain things in a certain way to get it to say this way. That's what the Bible is all about. You see how much work he has to do? I don't have to do any work. Entos means inside. Done. That's how easy it is. That's the other thing I don't think people really realize. It's so simple. It's so incredibly simple that a guy like me, who could barely read, who could barely comprehend when he reads, can take on a scholar, a Bible scholar, a modern-day Bible scholar. That's him. Right? Just in this verse, I probably can't do with everything. But with this, I've spent a lot of time because I'm trying to figure out why people think this way. So I respond too because he's asking me a question. Bart just said it well. My issue is not that within our side is that they are both the same. The issue is that the word Greek entos and people's use of it being external instead of internal. Bart takes the positions focused on Jesus. The problem with his view is that the passage and word entos does not facilitate this position. Just the word itself and its history of its use is a big problem for someone with this position, which is the view of most of America, yet the probability of it being possible is almost non-existent, which is why I'm so mystified by Bart's position on it, given the evidence against it. And basically what I'm saying here is he has this position, but even if he's right about Homer, it's such a small fraction. Why would you take that? Would you go to a casino and be like, hey, there's 1 in 99% chance that you'll win? And what you do win is basically nothing. Would you take that bet? Does that sound exciting? But he does. That's what I'm saying. That's why it's so easy to spot this stuff. But you just have to come over here to my position, my view, and look at it. And that's all before we even get the John Nelson Darby associated with it. It would be nice to have a conversation about it to discuss the issue more in depth, but the facts are that we are dealing with here in Luke 17, and Bart and the others that take on this external view of it is a literary impossibility of entos. And this quote that I'm making That's from every single classicist that I have hired and not hired. They all say the same thing. It's a literary impossibility to mean in mesos, which is in the midst of or among. It's not possible. Period. And the rest of the world that constructs the words that construct the sentence according to the people that I hire classicists to conduct research. Okay? Bart, of course, comes back. I don't know what kind of people you're hiring. If he only knew. If he only knew who these people were. They're in Athens. They're in Thessalonica. They call it Thessaloniki now, but I get Thessalonica from all the World War II spy stuff that I know of and watch. They all call it Thessalonica. But I suggest you ask them to look up the word in Liddell Scott Jones and how it is used going back to Homer. Okay, so he makes that reference again. I've already taken it up, but then I respond. This was on June 7th. One of the three is at the University of Athens. So I don't know if they ever consult with such a book, given they have their own libraries. Okay, that means a lot. Basically what it's saying is they have, this is Greece, this is Athens, this is the University of Athens. They have their own, they don't need a Liddell Scott. Right? Why would they do that? That's like being in Italy and saying, hey, let's go to get a pizza, and you call Domino's. Why would you? I wonder if they even have a Domino's over there. I'm sure they do, but I don't know who's ordering it. Nor do I tell anyone how to do their jobs, because again, I'm just asking these questions of them. Okay, I'm trying to stay as neutral as possible. Just ask the question. They gave me the answer. That's how I know. So I'm not telling them how to do their jobs. I asked them a question and they gave me an answer. When I did ask about your among, after their answers, the only possibility they gave me might be possible is from Ehrman. Okay? And it's funny, he's never mentioned Ehrman. I wonder if he'll ever bring that up. But in Homeric, classical, and later Greek, entos, the opposite of ektos, in every instance is understood in word and the context it's in to mean inside. Of all the 3 plus another that I don't pay, have all stated out of the countless usages of entos, of the time it is used to mean inside. I personally feel that the way it is used 8 times in the LXX and 2 times in the New Testament is enough. I have stated here that before the Liddell Scott Atherton, no such reference of what you're claiming, but only the recent edition that reflects it, but it gives no reference to any material that it is citing. Okay? So again, we're talking about, again, I brought this up earlier. We're talking about Luke. We're talking about Christianity. I'm just going to call it Christianity. We're talking about all these things, and he's writing a book. Do you really think the author of Luke is going to take some vague reference that Bart Ehrman understands 2,000? That's the other thing. This guy lives 2,000 years after the fact. I mean, who is he? Who am I? Right? Who are we to say anything? I don't think anyone's that. You think Bart Ehrman knows more than those people did? I don't think so. But why would Luke take a reference from Homer, okay, when he has 8 references to it in the Old Testament, in the Greek, in the LXX? Why would someone do that? You'd have to ask yourself that question. That doesn't make any sense. But we'll get into his answer to that. Look up Homer yourself and see. So there's another great answer from the illustrious Bart Ehrman. That's how many years of college and education he has. Just look up Homer and see yourself. I mean, I do wonder if he's actually answering these, but whatever. So that's his answer. Great answer, right? I mean, all the answers he gives are stupid. This is a statement where I say, I'm just a disciple of Christ. I have no religious or theological views, blah, 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 blah. So that was pretty much it with this one. But then someone else came up and asked, I don't understand what you're trying to say. It's funny. It's like I'm saying this stuff. I don't know. I mean, do what I'm saying sound understandable, or you confused as well? It seems to make sense to me. I know the material that I'm explaining doesn't seem to make sense to people because they don't recognize it. They're not familiar with it. They're used to hearing something else. But am I not making my point? I mean, if I'm not, let me know. But I think I've been pretty clear on what's going on here. It's funny how people can claim that. I don't understand what you're trying to say. I actually not understand what I'm trying to say, dummy. I really don't think they're paying attention, or I just don't make any sense at all. If I don't, let me know. I mean, maybe I don't. I am curious about this. Can you please translate the verse, not literally, but semantically? I don't know what the hell that means. How you would translate entos. But I'm not translating entos. That's what I don't understand what this guy is getting at, because this is probably one of his lackeys or something. Born in 2003, I don't know. This doesn't make any sense. You know, I made it very clear about what's going on here. So, I don't know who this is. I have a better way to resolve this issue. Why don't you, Bart, demonstrate that the writers of Luke in this chapter and verse ever had access to or were even aware of the reference of Homer's use of entos that you are claiming? So I'm kind of ignoring what this guy is saying, because I feel like it's what's it called? It's somebody that like works for him or something. I don't know. Something like that. I don't know what they're getting at. They're pretending like I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's go back in time 2,000 years to this scenario. I am the writer of Luke, and I am writing verse 21 of chapter 17. And instead of using a reference from the LXX, something we're all aware of and common to us, and I'm referring to, I'm this person 2,000 years ago. I'm making this point again. Okay, so we all know this is Jesus, it's the Old Testament, this is all this stuff that's relevant to it, but I'm going to take some vague reference to Homer instead of what's in the LXX 8 times. And I ask him later on, let's talk about those 8 references that I'm making in the Old Testament. Which one of those are exterior? Of course, he doesn't give an answer. Let's instead use some subjective, vague definition from the work of a pagan who existed 800 some odd years ago to define what we are trying to convey to other Jews and to the people living amongst them instead of the LXX. Okay, so I'm being a real smart ass here, and I'm saying, I'm Luke, I'm writing the book of Luke, and instead of using the references from, our culture and our religion and our time and our place, we're just going to use some vague reference that some Bible scholar 2,000 years from now is making. Okay. Does that sound like a possible scenario to you, Bart? Why don't you start with the LXX? Which of the entos uses out of 8 do you think suggests is defining anything external rather than internal? Because this is the type of theory you are going to have to prop up in order to just begin to make your argument valid. Okay? His response was, Luke knew the range of meanings of entos because he was a Greek speaker, and there was a range of meanings of entos in Greek. The context is always determinative as for every word in every language. So, in my opinion, and again, this is for you too. You guys make the decision, guys and gals. Does it sound like he's giving you really good references here? Like, oh, Luke knew the meaning, so now he knows what Luke understands. I don't know, maybe he got a hold of his college transcripts or something. Maybe there's something that actually was checked off. Do you understand the range of meanings of the word entos? Check. Oh, I mean, where is this information coming from? It's this, it's that, it's this. No references whatsoever. Just like this Liddell Scott. It says all this stuff, but there's no reference. And this guy's a researcher. This guy does research and all kinds of stuff. He knows what references are. He gives references in not so much in his blog, because that's where he BS's everyone, but in his books, he gives references sometimes. Okay? This guy is a BS artist. He is. He'd be a really good trial lawyer, like on the P. Diddy. He'd be a really good P. Diddy lawyer, okay? Because he just deals in nonsense and manipulates people and getting them to not find his client guilty, even though he is, probably. Allegedly. But he was found, whatever. Let's just agree that you don't believe me, and instead of repeating the same argument over and again, move on to some other topic. Now, you have to understand, I'm not even talking to him anymore. I'm talking to whoever this person is. And it's funny how these people never get back to me. They say something that's in defense of what Bart Ehrman's saying somehow. I don't... Explain it to me like I'm 6 years old. Well, I mean, I already did. I don't know. I don't think a 6-year-old would understand this. So, I mean, I don't know how to answer this guy's questions. This other guy that answered questions seemed a lot more valid. This guy, that's what I'm saying. I think this guy is sympathetic or works for him. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe this is Bart Ehrman's alter ego. I don't know. 2003 is probably when he was born. But I don't really answer his question. I kind of hit it back at Bart. So, this is the last reply, okay? Video's almost over. Jeez, it's been an hour. So you are avoiding presenting any supporting evidence on the range of meanings of entos from the Old Testament as well that would support your view of Luke 17 for some unverifiable claim about the author of Luke. It is not that I disagree with your view on the range of meanings of entos. It is that no one that I have come across so far who is an expert in the field of classical Greek and literature spanning from the Archaic period to the Byzantine era that agrees in any way with your opinion on entos. All that was said about your view is only someone pushing a theological position would take such a view of this word here. And most importantly, I was talking to other blog members when you decided to chime into this Luke conversation. So your move on to another topic evasion tactic in order to silence me and distract from factual information. And I kind of poke at him right here from people who are actually qualified, because he is not qualified to give this answer, believe it or not. To give such an answer does not work very well. Don't get upset with me because you chose to take on a theological view containing a word that contradicts the view itself. That's basically what Bart has done here. He's screwed himself over, and that's why he's trying to manipulate you. That's why everyone's trying to manipulate you. And this is a very exhaustive, in-depth look at this word. And even Bart Ehrman himself, he cannot uphold his view. He can't. Because you notice he doesn't give a response anymore. Now, this was waiting in moderation, I believe, for almost a week and a half. I'll just call it 10 business days, okay? 14 days total, which is kind of a long time. But no one else can see it when it's in moderation. But as you can see, he's he looked at it. It's on his blog, which is good. I'm glad he has erased some things in the past. But, again, I take screenshots of things. So he hasn't erased this, and I don't know if he ever will, but he didn't respond to it. Because how could he? How can you respond to this type of information? I'm giving him facts. I'm giving him information. I'm asking him specific questions. I'm quoting people that are actually qualified to give these types of answers. And he doesn't have anything. He cannot uphold his position. Can't do it. He can't. Because he's lying to you. He's a lying liar. Now, as a disciple of Christ, I'm not reveling in this fact. I'm like, oh, yeah, praise Jesus. No, I actually feel sorry for the guy. This guy got screwed over by Christians, the same people I'm worrying about. He has become what he hates. He hates those people. That's why he's exactly like them. But he's an atheist. He's still the same person. He's just on the opposite end of the spectrum. And he takes this position, I've heard, because God's such a bad person, he allows all these horrible things on earth to happen. Well, guess what, Bart? You're the reason why things are horrible. It's you and people like you. You're the ones that make things horrible. And then you turn around and complain about it and blame God. Let's talk about Afghanistan and all the things we did as a country in that part of the world. You hate Donald Trump, you hate Republicans, you're a real big liberal guy, and you vote for all these liberals that just exited Afghanistan one day. And now all these horrible, horrible things are happening in Afghanistan, just like they were before we went there. And you don't say anything about it. And if you did hear something, you'd probably say something like, oh, that's horrible. How could God allow that to happen? God didn't allow it to happen. You did. You think Bart Ehrman got on his blog and said, we can't pull out of Afghanistan. Those poor women, those poor people, they'll be under the yoke of the Taliban again. We have to fight. We have to convince Joe Biden not to exit this way. Right? No. Nothing like that. Never. See how two-faced they are? See how crazy they are? This person is crazy. But he knows it. And I know it. I know God knows it. This guy ain't got that much time left. I've already told him before, I'm like, hey, you should do the right thing. He refuses. It's things like this, what I'm talking about, will be his undoing. But nobody's going to care. No one will probably even hear it. I doubt he's going to hear it. This video. I have been given an answer, but that does not give me knowledge. It gives me understanding. And I don't want to use this understanding to destroy other people. But if they insist upon lying, I will always stand up for what's right and what's true. And the truth is, Luke 17:21 means entos, inside of you. The kingdom of God is inside you. That's what Luke said. That's all it means. That's all it can mean. It doesn't mean anything else. And this person is lying about it on purpose, and he knows it. So that's what this is about. That's why I wanted to show you that I've been given an answer, and I can take on a Bart Ehrman just here in Luke 17:20 and 21. Probably in some other things too. We've argued about other things, but it doesn't really matter. There's something incredibly, incredibly important about Luke 17:21 and the kingdom of God being inside you. I don't exactly know what it means, but it's important. Very, very important. It is very, very important that you understand that as well. You may not know what it means, but you have to understand that it is. And it's not among or in the midst of. That's a lie. And this is the person that pushes that lie. So this has been our debate. you too can have this understanding, and you can take on anyone, even a Bart Ehrman yourself.